because that was kind of my first wake up call of like, wow, I have this Mean Girl soundtrack going on in my head that is like, she's ferocious. And I would never speak to a friend that way.
What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more. And we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG, Teach Me Tribe. Here we are again. I am excited about today's episode. You have probably heard me say that we need to be kind to ourselves. I say that a lot. Our brains tend to be skewed kind of negatively. And so one of the things I heard that really stuck with me was, would you say to your friend out loud the things that you say to yourself in your head all day? You probably wouldn't. I don't think I would. So today we are going to talk about being compassionate with ourselves because this is such an important topic. And my guest today is Holly Zajur. She is a lifelong learner in yoga and mindfulness, and they have been an essential part of her personal growth and development. She's always seeking new ways to deepen her practice, and she's found that sharing what supports her well-being with others is one of the most rewarding aspects of her life. And I agree with that. That's why I'm here. So she has dedicated her career to helping others cultivate mindfulness and well-being as a wellness educator, entrepreneur, and writer. And she focuses on empowering others with tools to live their most authentic lives. She is the founder of Connect Wellness and host of How the Wise One Grows podcast. And we'll make sure to have those links for you in the show notes. And she provides a platform for thought leaders to share their wisdom and insights on personal growth and inner wisdom. So, Holly, I am so excited to have you join me today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Cheryl.
I'm excited to talk about this. So let's dive right in. And usually I like to start with your story. So how did you end up feeling this strongly about connecting people, about wellness, about mindfulness? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I always love this question because I truly can't even fizzle out a point in my life where I didn't need these tools by this point. Growing up, I experienced anxiety, but didn't really have the language for it at the time. And it wasn't until I was in high school and I was going through a rough patch and I found my way to a yoga class. And I immediately remember feeling like I had dipped my toe in something I was going to be submerged in. And it made me feel like I had found home in myself.
Wow.
And that has been my constant guide. You know, my relationship with the practice has evolved a lot over the years, but ever since then, I've been really dedicated to practicing myself, whether it's yoga, asana, or, you know, the principles and practices of yoga that embody my life, and mindfulness and meditation. And it was in high school, not in high school, it was in college when I got shingles in my right eye, and I almost lost my eyesight in that eye.
Hi.
And for those who are familiar with shingles, shingles is often a result of high stress or a weakened immune system. And I didn't know that I was stressed, but my body told me I was, right? Like at the time, I didn't mentally, I was like, yeah, there's stuff going on, but like I'm fine, I can handle it. And then my body was like, hell no, you can't. You got to calm down. So that was my reality checkpoint for like, all right, you know, I've been doing these practices, but I really need to pay attention to my mental and physical well-being as a constant. So after that point was when I signed up for my yoga teacher training, and I've just been dedicated to sharing these practices ever since. You know, it's always been a part of my life and especially my professional life. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to continue to teach through Connect Wellness. And really, I find the podcast, How the Wise One Grows, to be one of the most profound ways that I'm able to share how these practices support you in life in a really, I feel like, approachable way.
Yeah. I feel like our audiences may be similar. So I'm definitely going to make sure that everyone can have a listen to your podcast, because I think the listeners here will enjoy it for sure. And I was about to say, wow, you're lucky that you kind of found where you belonged fairly quickly, but maybe you were just smart and you listened to your body and your intuition, and maybe that's even
Hmm.
better.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you're into astrology at all, but I am like all air signs. So I've always found that I'm really drawn to anything that brings me into my body. So I think
Mm.
yoga, that's why I so deeply connect with that. The other side of me is I am a ceramic artist. So very anything that's grounding and embodying me, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, I need to do that." That helps me so much. So much so that I can't not do it.
Right. Well, you know what? We just aren't always that good at listening to our bodies. So I'm impressed for sure. It took me a long time to get where you are. So, speaking of being kind to ourselves, listening to our bodies, I suppose, we are talking about self compassion today. And as I said at the beginning, I am always saying, oh my gosh, be kind to yourself, be kind to yourself. But I want to obviously dive a little bit deeper into that, and I'm sure we will. So, tell us what self compassion means for you and why it's important.
Yeah, I loved how you started our conversation by sharing that example of like, do you talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend? Because that was kind of my first wake up call of like, wow, I have this mean girl soundtrack going on in my head that is like, she's ferocious. And I would never speak to a friend that way. So why do I think it's okay to talk to myself? And compassion is when we recognize suffering and we take action to help. And I think that element of action is so key in compassion, because it's one thing to logically understand something and like, oh, I should be kind. But compassion invites us to take a step further and step into that aligned action of kindness. So I think it's really important and often gets so neglected, especially when it comes to ourselves. And I think people tend to think that if I'm compassionate with myself, maybe I'll be too easy on myself and I won't achieve my goals and I won't do X, Y, and Z. Like I need self-criticism to push myself. And I'm obsessed with Dr. Kristen Neff, and her work is what my knowledge is primarily based off of around this topic. And her studies show that like that in fact isn't true. Self-criticism will decrease your willpower, but self-compassion will increase your willpower. It strengthens the part of the brain that controls that function. And if you think about it, if you feel good about something, you want to keep doing it. If you
Mhm.
feel bad about something, you don't want to. So I think it's this really, we can break it down as simply as that. Like, if, okay, I don't always meet my goals, but if I'm kind to myself in the moments when I don't have this negative association with that goal. And I want to keep working towards it. I want to continue to achieve it.
Yeah. So many good points in there. Goodness. I am a recovering hard on myself person. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess we all are sometimes, right? As you said, we wouldn't speak to our friend that way. And I am exactly what you just described. I really felt like it wasn't okay to be happy and feel good about something that wasn't happy and good because it wasn't what I meant to do, or, whatever the situation was. It felt like I was just going too easy on myself. But I have learned that I don't get anywhere with that attitude. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that that's what you said, because you also said kindness as action, which the action thing is kind of a good point too.
Mm-hmm. And this will veer a little away from the topic of compassion, but I think it's really important. Something you named there of like, sometimes you feel bad if you like feel okay about something or good about something, even if it's not good. But if we're looking at yoga, the word means union and oneness, and wholeness is another definition. And compassion to me is a part of the whole. In every quote unquote good, there's quote unquote bad. Like we always have both in existence. So when we try to deny one side of the emotion or one side of the feeling, we're not whole. We're not full. We can't fully be with the present or the sensation or really our lived experience. So I think compassion is a way that we can really allow ourselves to feel what we quote unquote don't think we should at any given moment, but it's already there, whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. Compassion helps us open the doors to hold all of it, all of the experiences that we have as a part of being human.
Yeah. Meaning it's all okay. It's
It's all
all,
human.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all a part of the whole. It's all a part of this experience.
yeah. Really good point. Really good point. I'm not sure where this idea that we need to beat ourselves up comes from. I guess maybe it's easy for us to see in hindsight how we might do something differently, or it's easy for us to compare. Maybe it comes from comparison now that I'm saying that out
Mhm.
loud. Comparing ourselves to other people and finding ourselves lacking. Interesting. So you mentioned Dr. Neff. Is there some science behind this? Is that something that she has studied a lot or talked about a lot?
She definitely has. If we're looking at what self compassion is doing to the body and to the mind, like when we practice self compassion, we are decreasing our stress response because we're stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system. So, for those who are unaware, the sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response, it's your stress response, and it's not a bad thing. It helps us in tremendous ways. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest, tend and befriend, lets your body know that you're safe, you can relax. So often we kind of live in this high cortisol, high stress state, especially in the world we live in today. There's so much going on globally, on top of like getting text notifications, emails, bings, like all the things flying at you. It's causing a stress response. So I'm a huge advocate of anything that can help us tap into our parasympathetic nervous system. And that will help. High cortisol and high stress will cause hormonal balances, which can lead to a wide range of health complications. So anything that we can do to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system can help bring us back to our body's equilibrium if we're in that high stress state. It helps us to feel soothed and comforted when we tap into that parasympathetic nervous system. It also increases the hormone oxytocin, which is known as the love hormone, and it stimulates feelings of happiness and our ability to connect. So when we're not having enough oxytocin, it's harder to connect with others. And I think connection is so key to our lived experience. Self compassion activates the insula, which is the part of the brain that stimulates our immune response. So it can even increase our immune system, which is really profound. And like I said before, it increases our willpower. It can help lower anxiety and depression. And it really helps us meet our own attachment needs, which I think is so key and just improves our overall well being.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
immune system, hormones balanced, avoiding chronic stuff that comes from being stressed all the time. I mean, that's a million
Hmm.
important things.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't you wish sometimes that living well had a set of easy steps to follow, or maybe a handbook for success? There are certainly many books out there that help, but wouldn't we love some easy tips that we can try right now? I've created for you 7 days of easy, free tips for living well. We're talking about sleep, food, movement, mindset, and a lot more. Even if you pick a few of these suggestions and give them a try, you will be starting down a path to amazing change over time. Make sure to go to www.bit.ly/OMG Teach Me podcast and sign up for your 7-day journey with me. Okay, so as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, okay, people are obviously going to think this is a really good thing.
Hmm.
And if anyone's been listening for a while, you have heard I had another guest a few months ago talk to us about the nervous system. And so that was great that that came up again. And maybe people are a little bit familiar. Here's what was coming up in my head. This is all well and good.
Hmm.
But how? If we're in this situation where we're just so annoyed with ourselves or whatever it is, how can we maybe ratchet that down or flip it over to self-compassion?
So, the way I break it down, and again, this is based on Kristen Neff's work, is awareness, acceptance, and then I like to focus on compassion and action. So, I'll kind of just guide you through what that looks like.
Great.
Like awareness, right? We're going to start there. I think awareness is the first step to everything. You can't change anything if you don't know what's happening. So, awareness is just like noticing that voice in your head. And not believing it, unhooking from it, and just taking a bird's eye view and saying, like, huh, that's an interesting thought I'm having. Like, can you not attach yourself with that thought? Can you know that you are not your thoughts and instead be aware of it? And there's a lot of ways we can cultivate awareness, a lot of mindfulness practices. And I'll kind of share a bit about each of these steps and guide you through a practice as well. So, the way that I like to help people cultivate awareness in the beginning is something called a body scan. So, do you mind just kind of practicing a body scan with me, developing some awareness for ourselves right now?
Sure. Do we need to warn people that maybe if they're driving, they should pause and listen to this later?
They can, and if you're driving, you can still do this. I'll
Okay.
cue you accordingly. So wherever you are, I want you to just take a moment to notice where your body makes contact with the earth and take a big breath in and a big breath out. And if it's safe for you, you can gently rest your eyes or just keep focusing on what's before you. And take a moment to scan your body from the tip of your head to the tips of your toes. And just get curious about what's present for you here. I kind of like to pretend that I'm taking mental inventory of like, head, how do we feel? Shoulders, how do we feel? Not judging what's arising, just taking mental inventory of what's present from your head to your toes. And then just take a big breath in and a big breath out again. That's the first step. I like to practice it with the body first. And then you can, work your way up with mindfulness and meditation to practice a similar practice with your mind and your
Right.
thoughts. Just noticing them, what's present, not good, not bad, just taking that mental inventory, knowing that you are not those things, just like you're not your shoulder, you're not that thought.
Right, right. And maybe these kind of help us find that people oftentimes will say that it's hard to sort of recognize their emotional state. If I say, well, how are you feeling? No one knows what to answer. So maybe this helps a little bit with that too, is to kind of see where we feel something.
Definitely. I think if we can start to see where we feel something too, like sometimes it's a great place to start to explain how you're feeling to someone. You can say, like my chest actually feels kind of tight right now, and I feel like there's a knot in my throat. And it's actually a really good thing to use if you're having a difficult conversation or in conflict too, because someone can't tell you you're not feeling what you're feeling physically in your body. You
Hmm.
are the authority in that. So it's a way you can break down, like, maybe I'm not explaining the situation right now, but when this is happening, this is the experience my body is having. And that's a great starting point to understanding and having compassion for one another.
Right. And that's not threatening at all. It's just
Mm-mm.
kind of descriptive. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, makes sense. Okay, so we're aware of kind of how our body's feeling, if there's any trouble spot or anything going on. We're maybe aware of what's going on in our heads, noticing
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts. So then what comes next?
So the next step is acceptance. There is a phrase from Shinzen Young, I guess it's an equation, that says in suffering and in life, suffering equals pain times resistance. And in life, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And you're going to suffer the degree to which you resist what pain is present. We can't eliminate the pain, that's a part of our human experience. So when you notice that voice in your head or a pain in your body, like maybe I just did a workout and maybe the voice of criticism in my head is like, oh, like my legs feel horrible, like they're so weak, I shouldn't be this weak. The acceptance point would come in and being like, all right, that's a pain in my leg and I just moved my muscles. And all humans experience sensations when they move the muscles in their body, right? You bring it to accepting your pain and acknowledging the common humanity in it. And that's a really key component, to acknowledge that you're not alone in it. So the way that I kind of like to practice acceptance is just that. So if we're sticking with the body as the modality we're moving through, right? You scan your body head to toe and you notice, okay, this sensation of pain in my legs, or this tension in my legs. And just noticing, like, this is a moment of pain, repeating this in your head, like, this is a moment of pain. All humans experience pain, or like whatever emotion it is. Maybe there's an emotion coming up. This is an emotion of sorrow. All humans experience sorrow. Accepting that it's there and acknowledging that you're not alone in it.
Right. It's interesting that kind of, how do I want to say this? Grouping ourselves in with all the people, humanity, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
is such a powerful thing, because I find that sometimes people, we kind of double down on being on ourselves, because we say, well, why would I speak to myself so negatively? Like, that's terrible. Why would I do that? But everybody does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So same thing. That's how our brains are wired. Everybody does it. Yeah.
It makes it easier when you're not alone in it, right? Like it's really hard to lift a bus on your own, but if there's a ton of people lifting it up together, we can do it. And we, in my worldview, like, we are all connected. So like all of these lived experiences, we need each other to move through it. We need that support, and to not isolate ourselves from it.
And I think a lot of the discussion on these topics has come up even more in the past few years, because as you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, not isolate ourselves, I'm thinking, wow, we've come out of a period of time that was hard because we did feel more
Very.
isolated. Yeah.
100%.
Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we are aware, we accept, and then now what?
Now it's time for that action of compassion. So I like to have a compassionate gesture and phrase that I can give myself in that moment. So often for me, it's placing one hand on my heart and taking a few deep breaths and just saying, like, I'm safe here, or I am enough. Some gesture that's gonna, so if we're going through that example of, feeling bad about myself because my legs feel tired after workout, maybe I put my hand on my legs and I take a breath. I'm just like, legs, what do you need right now? Ask them what they need. Maybe they want legs up the wall. So, like, do legs up the wall for a few breaths. And maybe while I'm doing that, I just tell myself, like, you're enough. You are strong. You are whole. Whatever phrase is going to ground you in that moment. And don't do something ostentatious that, like, feels true. Like, you don't have to say, like, yes, you're the strongest person in the world. Like, just meet yourself where you're at and acknowledge the strength that's already within you, and really give yourself what you need. Like, if you notice that you're hungry, feed yourself. If you're thirsty, do that. Meet your basic needs in that moment. Give your body, give your mind, give your soul what it needs.
Powerful. Yeah. And this is slightly off topic, although relevant to your example, of course, but legs up the wall is one of my favorite things to do. It feels
Mm-hmm.
so good.
That's how I used to do my meditation every morning. It's so many benefits.
And just in case anybody doesn't know, how would you describe this? Sitting yourself right up close to the wall and then laying down, right, but with your legs up leaning on the wall. Is that a decent description?
Yeah, I like to describe it as, like, come sit beside a wall with your shoulder along the edge and, like, curled up in a ball, kind of. Then lower onto your back and swing your legs so they go up along the wall. And the blood flow from the legs is moving down. So it's bringing actually your heart above your head. So it's a little bit of an inversion too, which adds to some of the benefits.
Excellent. That's really powerful. It has been powerful for me. So I'm glad that was part of your example.
Yeah. It's a great one. Everyone should do it. Maybe do it now while you're listening.
Yeah, do it now. Not if you're driving, obviously, but otherwise.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, okay, I like that. And I always like to make sure that people have something they can actually do. So we can kind of just take a moment, have some stillness, become aware of what's going on. And I like that you said start with our bodies, because we can all kind of see, like, as we were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, my chest is a little tight. I wonder what's going on with that. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think there's a problem, but now I'm wondering. So that could be powerful, because I think maybe we rush through our day and we don't always recognize those things.
Mhm. Yeah, and a lot of times things just want attention too. Like sometimes if we just notice, oh, my chest feels tight. What if I just like breathe into my chest for a few moments? What if I sit with that discomfort? Sometimes that alleviates the resistance around it, which can alleviate the suffering.
Good point. So similar with emotions too. I think we're scared to feel them, but if we just let them, we just let ourselves feel them, then oftentimes we can get through it.
Yeah, and when we don't name things, when we leave them in the dark, they have more power. You take away its power when you shine a light on it, right? Like if you're scared of monsters in the closet, like once you open the closet and turn on the light, it's not so scary. It's the closet. So often our minds make things scarier than it seems. And I think compassion is such a key component into dealing with difficult emotions because often I think people associate emotions like jealousy or anger or these quote unquote negative emotions as meaning you're bad or wrong or you shouldn't feel them. When in fact, if you're having compassion with yourself, you can acknowledge that that emotion is probably there because it's trying to protect you. And you just have to talk to it and tell it, like, hey, actually, we're okay right now. I got this. Like, thanks for trying to protect me, though, but why don't you put your energy over here? We can have a very different conversation and relationship with our internal family systems and our emotional well being.
Great point. I like the idea that maybe it's trying to protect us. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good point. Now, this episode is airing at the beginning of a new year. So it occurs to me that this could be a time where people are maybe dealing with some lingering family strife and things like that from the holidays, or maybe berating ourselves about New Year's resolutions. So I hope that this kind of brings forward the idea that being hard on ourselves is not the answer, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah, especially with those New Year's resolutions. Like, don't beat yourself up when you fall off. Just notice if you do, and then ask yourself, what do you need to do to get back to where you want to be?
And all without judgment, you're
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Yes.
And like when you do judge yourself, just notice it and don't be mad at yourself for judging yourself. That's just like a part of the experience that you're having.
Good point. Isn't it funny that it just feels sometimes like, as you said earlier, if we're not hard and tough on ourselves, we might not get where we're going. And that's really not true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a kid, the way you would treat a kid and help them reach their goals, like if they messed up the first time, you wouldn't be like, oh, you idiot, like you'll never be able to do it. You'd be like, okay, like here, let's try it this way this time. And, scaffold their way up to it. You can do that to yourself. You don't have to be so harsh.
Great picture. I will definitely keep that in my mind for sure. And so we'll then also remember, let's see, awareness,
Acceptance.
acceptance, and action. And I've definitely seen people put quotes and things saying, I am enough. And so that gives us a little
Hmm.
context on that for sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you think we might have missed that might help people with self compassion?
I think this is a really good starting point. Again, just know like, this one little taste might get you interested. And if it does, I encourage you to continue to explore that. And I really can't emphasize enough just like having that self awareness foundation and working towards just noticing what's happening and trying to meet yourself without judgment through whatever's happening. That's a really great place to start if you are having a hard time having feelings of kindness towards yourself. And if you are really interested in this topic and want to grow in it, I have a meditation on my podcast, How the Wise One Grows, that is a metta meditation, which is a loving kindness meditation that helps us focus on how we can cultivate compassion for ourselves, for strangers, and then even people that we might have conflict with and are really challenging relationships in our lives.
That's perfect. And that was going to be my next question, actually, is how can people find you or connect with you? So it sounds like that is something that we definitely are happy to know about. And so tell me how else maybe people can find you.
Yeah, so for those who are on social media, you can find me on Instagram. My accounts are at Holly Zajur and at How the Wise One Grows. You can also find How the Wise One Grows podcast on all the streaming places and on YouTube. You can visit my website, hollyzajur.com, as well as my business website, Connect-Wellness. If wellness is something that your company might need, I'm here to support in that way as well. And I also do one-on-one mindfulness mentoring sessions and am taking clients for that as well.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I'll make sure that all the links are in the show notes too. Okay. In theme of being not hard on ourselves and compassionate with ourselves, I have a playlist that I always add a song to every week for helping us to improve our mood, raise our vibration. And so, what is your favorite song to listen to when you just want to feel good?
This is like one of my very favorite songs in the world. A friend put it on like a mixtape he gave me in high school, and it is called The Start of Something by Voxtrot. I think it's perfect for this topic, to be quite honest. Really good for those hard moments, and I hope everyone dances so much to it.
It feels a little bit familiar, the name of it, but I can't bring it up into my mind. So I will find it and I will add it. I love it when there's a new song for sure. And actually, part of the reason that fascinates me about this question is only one time has there ever been a repeat of a
Oh,
song
that's cool. I
out
love this
of
question. I've
a
never had
lot.
this one. I love it.
So, okay, good. We got a new one. I'm excited. Perfect. Well, Holly, thank you. I think, at the beginning of a new year, when we're all kind of a little bit introspective and also maybe beating ourselves up a little bit about eating and holidays and whatever, this will be really helpful for people to just kind of take a minute, go through what you talked us through, tell ourselves that really important message that we're enough, and be kind to ourselves. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, or take a screenshot and share on your social media. Let's get this message out further into the world. Now it's time to head down to the show notes to see the resources I mentioned. We may not have learned this before, but it sure is powerful now.